words said in the aftermath are just too confusing. Now I spend my days watching you throw stones at someone who's already dead. And if this is the way we all begin, so how can I ask for any more?
Welcome to the Stages of Minnesota. This episode will be celebrating the 20th anniversary of Fortune's Fool Theater and continuing the family theme we started on the last episode. I'll be talking to the co-artistic directors of the company, playwright and producer Dan Pinkerton, and his daughter, actress, lighting designer, director, storyteller, and troublemaker. I made that last one up, but she has that air about her, Ariel Pinkerton. We'll talk about the company's journey over the last 20 years, what it's like to make theater with family, and the double bill of shows that are marking the big anniversary. Later in the show, we'll have a review of Mistletoe and Mayhem, the Hallmark parody of the season from Just Us Theater. I want to send out a big congratulations to the littlest theater blogger, Althea Forstner, for being awarded by Hennepin Arts Spotlight Program as Outstanding in Technical Leadership for Stage Managing the Addams Family at Kennedy High School this fall. Be sure and read her blog Beyond the Curtains, which we'll link to in the show notes. She's busy finishing her senior year of high school, stage managing, applying for colleges, and interning at Artistry Minnesota. So her reviews are a little less frequent than some of our fellow Twin Cities theater bloggers. But when she does have time to review shows, you'll want to read them. Her writing is, like everything else she does, dazzling. A couple more announcements. I know I warned you during the holiday preview episode, but A Christmas Carol, more or less, out at Yellow Tree Theater in Osseo is selling out. So this is your second warning to get your tickets now, if there are any left in the run by the time this posts. Also, on the selling out front, Theater La Ti Da has added a performance of My Fair Lady due to the show's popularity. That's a matinee on December 18th at 2 p.m. Now, prepare to shiver your timbers and deck the ship's cook or something like that. 2025 marks the 20th anniversary of Fortune Fool Theater's first production. Founded in 2005 by playwright Daniel Pinkerton and director-playwright Lee Cooper, Fortune's Fool Theater produced sporadically initially, frequently as part of the Minnesota Fringe Festival. In recent years, their producing schedule has accelerated to producing about a show a year. In 2011, Daniel's daughter, Ariel Pinkerton, joined him as co-artistic director. To mark the occasion of the Fortune Fools Theater's 20th anniversary, that is really hard to say, the company is producing 2 shows in rep at Hive Theater Collaborative in St. Paul from December 5th through the 21st. Today, I'm joined by Dan and Ariel Pinkerton to talk about Fortune Fool Theater and this 20th anniversary festival. Dan and Ariel, welcome to the Stages of Minnesota.
Thanks for having us, Rob.
Dan, tell us how Fortune Fools Theater came to be.
I was a playwright. I had an award-winning play that was being given readings around the country, but nobody wanted to produce it. And Leah said, "Oh, let's produce it. We can produce this show for $5,000. She was off by about $5,000, but we did it. And we applied for a grant with the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council. And I didn't think we'd get any money. I mean, we were a first-time group and nobody had ever heard of us. We just had a play and some artists, and they gave it to us. And so we produced the play, and that was the very beginning. We incorporated in October of 2005 and produced our first play in March of 2006. Do you want to know a secret?
Yes,
Name of the
we
play.
always want to know a secret.
That's the name of the play. And so that's how.
Oh,
And Ariel actually was involved from the very first.
You primarily see me as a performer, but I do a lot of other things as well. And one of the other things that I do is lighting design. And so I originally came on board as the lighting designer. And I can't remember every single job that I did, but I know I was also the house manager. I think I ran tickets. I may have printed some flyers. I'm not really sure. It's very much in my nature to kind of just ooze out into every aspect of a production that I am part of, if I'm part of the producing company, and sometimes if I'm not. Um, but yeah, that's how I came on board. I had done a reading of this earlier, and I flatter myself to think that one of the characters was molded after me as a teenager. But I was not the right age anymore to play the role when the show came about.
I'm curious if you guys disagree on something, how is that resolved as you are both co-artistic directors of the theater company?
Well, one thing we often do is we'll go back and forth on picking shows. It's not always one for one. If somebody has a great idea and it's not their turn, we still might produce it. But that's one of the things that sort of helps us, because there are some ways in which we agree as artists, but some ways that we're totally different. My dad might suggest writing Lady with a Lapdog while I want to produce The Skriker. Very, very different kinds of shows. And so if we give each other sort of the ability to headline a project, to be sort of the top dog of that show, that kind of automatically grants that person a bit more say in that particular production. And then there are certain aspects of every show that each of us handle, doing the majority of at least. And so I think that also helps as well. I often help, find technicians, get space, that sort of thing. My dad will do a lot of the grant writing. He's really good at publicity and postcards and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of jobs that we know the other person does pretty well.
And I have to say that when we choose a show, I mean, Ariel chooses The Skriker, I choose Lady with a Lapdog. We don't do it unless both of us are on board with it. Skriker isn't a show that I might have suggested, but Ariel wanted to do it really a lot, and I liked the show. And so I said, okay, let's do it. There have been times when one of us has suggested doing something and the other said, I don't think that's really right for us. And that's ended there, and we've gone to find something else.
So you never pull the dad card.
Well, no, I don't think so. The worst I've ever done, and I try not to do that much, is when it is a show that I've written. And we have only done, in 20 years, we've only done like 4 or 5 shows that I've written. I have these strong feelings about it. On the other hand, as a playwright, you learn to, as much as you can, try to let other people interpret your work. I do occasionally pull the producer card, like, no, we can't afford that. Sorry, we're at the end of our rope as far as the budget goes. I have to remind artists, and I think Ariel does this too, pulls the producer card. I know if I'm an artist or if she's an artist, you have to say very carefully, I'm not saying this as the writer, or I'm not saying this as the actress. I'm saying this as the producer. We have to
Sure.
do this. Do you think that's true, Ariel? Or do you think I pull the dad card?
Oh, I mean, we might have a dad-daughter squabble, but in the end, we work it out professionally, and any disagreement is about passion, and so that's the right reason to be having a disagreement. You know what I mean? If somebody is insistent on something, you should always try and find out why before you
Right.
say no.
Mhm.
So.
So it sounds like a fairly functional, creative collaboration.
I would say that. And again, as Ariel said, it's sure, it's not that there aren't disagreements, but we are not dysfunctional. We know how to to come to a point where we say, okay, we'll do it your way.
I think one of the things that can be challenging is that there can be productions where one of us or the other, just by nature of the production or something happening within it, is doing a bit more of the lion's share of the work, either before the show happens, which might be more on my dad's end of things, or in the middle of the show, rehearsing the space, figuring out the hiring of people, which might be more on my end, or when the show goes up. We're a very, very small company, so it's quite often that I might be running a box office and be in the show, or my dad might be running the box office for 7 shows in a row while I'm making the cookies to sell at the show. Those can be tough times, especially at that point when the audience is coming out at the end and clearly having enjoyed themselves. It's pretty easy to let go of the frustrations that can come with that.
Sure. So tell us about Yar, the Lusty Busty Pirate Musical's genesis, and how you decided it was a show to mark the company's 20th anniversary.
After 2005, we really didn't do anything for quite some time. And I had started doing the Fringe Festival quite often. I mean, the first time I did it, believe it or not, was 1999 was my first Fringe Festival. But I kind of came back to the Fringe in 2003 was, I think, the next show I did after that. I was doing it on and off. And I was discovering in my 20s that I wasn't quite sure where I fit in theater. I wasn't quite anybody's ingenue. And I had this sense of like, well, when I hit 30, when I hit 40, some of those stronger women are going to come in, there's more viable work to be had. But until then, I'm going to have to figure it out. And I had a really big hit in 2009 with Harold Pinter's The Dumbwaiter. I started to really understand sort of like how you get the attention of an audience and what the value of doing shows at Fringe. I just really started to really fall in love with it at that point and had wrapped my head around it. So I asked my dad if he would be interested in doing a Fringe show, and then tone deafly told him I was interested in doing Irma Vep.
And I said to her at that point, well, let me tell you something about camp. Irma Vep is a show that really calls for two men to play a bazillion different roles, and it's a particular thing for men. But I had been thinking maybe of doing a pirate show, which actually didn't thrill her. But when I said two or three women who will play all the different roles, her interest really perked up. And
Despite the fact that it was a musical. At the time, I was not much a fan of singing. So I had to be roped into that one a little bit.
you have this inferiority complex about your singing. You are not a trained singer. You can't read music, but you sing very well. Your sense of pitch and your sense of timing are really, really very good.
Well, thank you. I mean, I have to say this time around, I am really enjoying it. And I think part of that is being in the right role and having the composer in the room. So if we're like, oh, this isn't working, can we try it in a G? We can make those adjustments. But at the time, I found that a thing of terror.
The first one went off very well. I mean, it was the hit. I mean, we were playing in a 110 seat theater, and yet we had something like the 10th highest number of people come into our theater of all the shows that year.
We got the encore that year, which was really sweaty because we did the show right before the encore. So we did the show and then had to turn around and do the show again. Our bodices were like dripping with sweat by the time we were done.
So it was a huge success, and through the years, we did many different things. The 20th anniversary came along. We put our heads together and said, what do you think we should do? I think we should do something special for it. Dad says, let's remount our biggest hit. And Ariel said,
No, let's do the sequel. Because I had heard of this mythical sequel. He had given me this lovely title, Have Yourself a Lusty Busty Christmas.
Yes, it was such a huge hit that I used to go around saying, oh yeah, well, next thing we need to do is to write a Christmas show. Have yourself a lusty busty Xmas. And that's all I had. And at one point, I found out that we were eligible for what we thought was a rather large grant from the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council. who I would like at this point to mention because they have supported a number of our shows. And we started thinking, what could we do if we had that much money? And I said, let's do them both.
Yes, yes, he did.
But it seems like there's a flaw in this plan in that all you have for the sequel is a title.
That is correct. I applied for a large grant with nothing, nothing but a sequel for half of it. And mostly what we stressed was the idea that this would be a piece for, people who were not necessarily trained singers. So it would be a musical for anybody to perform. I mean, you have to be able to sing, but you can be like the killer karaoke singer. Karaoke, that's harder than Fortune's Fool. Killer at your karaoke sessions. And the other thing that we said to them that we think they liked, we wanted to offer it free of charge so that anybody in town could come and see it. All it will cost you is your time.
And to me, that sort of brings those two ideas into harmony. It's a musical for anyone to perform, and it's a musical that anybody can see. And I think that there's something that's really important about that. I mean, I think more than anything, we just need a community of artists and art lovers to come together right now. I mean, even back at the time we were writing the grant, we could see some grim things coming in the future, and so we basically wrote a grant that was like, these times are hard and they're going to get harder. And then we're going to hit a period of time in which everybody is going to be asked for their money from Give to the Max Day to Christmas. And could we just offer a moment free of all of those things?
Right.
Could we just offer a silly, fun, naughty pirate musical that you can just come to and you don't have to worry about anything else?
And it's our way to say thank you to audiences and donors that have been coming to the theater for 20 years.
Well, it's a great way to celebrate the 20th anniversary. I think it's inspired choice. I want to know a little bit about the two shows. What are they about?
Yar, originally I started researching it by reading real books about pirates, because I have a history background, and after one book, I said, forget it. That's not what I want. And so then I went down to local DVD rental store and rented every single pirate movie I could get my hands on. Yar is stolen and twisted and perverted versions of all of the tropes, particularly about gender roles, but also courage. And it's a lot of fun, particularly for people, if anybody who's read or seen Treasure Island or Pirates of the Caribbean has seen will say, oh, I know that. Oh,
It's
go ahead.
naughty and it's feminist and it's an incredible challenge for the actresses. I mean, on top of playing multiple characters, we're also all taking turns playing a hand puppet. Young Toby Bustle. When my dad originally pitched the show, he just had it titled Yar. And because, at Fringe, there's so many shows to compete with, it's recommended you really find a way in that title. And this is something when I talk to people that I just can't stress enough. You have to grab them in 2 seconds. I said, well, it should be Yar, the lusty, busty pirate musical. And part of that is for eye catching. And also part of it is so you know what you're getting into. There are going to be jokes about people's golden racks. There are going to be, I shouldn't give too many things away, but there's a ship called the Salty Cockerel. So it's a good way to immediately let people know what they're in for.
And what's the premise of the sequel?
Well, for the sequel, once again, your television is your friend, and I sat down and watched every Christmas special that I could get my hands on. So the sequel continues on with some of that talk about gender roles, but it also takes into account talking about Christmas, both secular and supposedly religious. As if that weren't enough, I began writing, I should say, Christianala and I. Christianala is the composer, and he was actually more involved in the writing of the book in the sequel because I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with just a title. So I took the Tom Sawyer approach and said, Chris, let's write this together. And then I found a folder on my computer from 2020 that contained a one-page outline. That saved our bacon. But also, I began writing very political things. And the interesting thing is that politics in 2025 has changed so quickly that the book for this show has had to be revised in small ways continually. I mean, some things like the billionaires who are trying to run American politics and this sort of thing can be satirized still. But for instance, there were a lot of Elon Musk jokes that some are still there, some are not.
You're deep in rehearsals, I assume,
Indeed.
and it's coming together. You feel good?
I do. I do. I sat down and plotted out all my light cues last night because, of course, I'm also lighting designing the show on top of being in both of them. But it
And
is.
baking cookies, I assume?
And baking cookies. I started to get a little stressed out at the beginning of this week. And then I was like, no, the whole point of this show is letting go and just having fun with it. And that doesn't mean don't know your lines or don't know your songs or anything like that. But really, it wants to have fun. And so it's, I think, every bit as important for us on stage to have fun with it as for the audience too. And then it feels like so much less effort.
Ariel, you think this is just a tiny bit less lusty and busty than the original.
I do, I mean, because I think the difference is that the first one's a pirate satire, right? In pirate satires, you already have grog and you already have bar wenches and you already have things that instinctively lead themselves towards this. Whereas this is a Christmas story. Inherently, it's a story about saving Father Christmas. And so while the characters interact in some flirtatious and sexy ways and that sort of thing, if I were to give them ratings, I would say that the Christmas show leans a little bit more towards the PG-13. I'm going to let my daughter come see the Christmas show, but I'm only going to let the 13-year-old come see the original Yar.
It sounds like the sequel is more topical. This may be the most culturally important pirate-based musical theater event since,
Don't tell them it's the only one.
well, ever. Please don't fact check that to go along with the current
We could say
political setting.
the most politically important one in the Twin Cities in December of 2025.
At the Hive Collaborative.
At the Hive Collaborative, that's right. I can't stress also how amazing the two actresses that we are working with have been. It is a hell of a show. I don't think I realized when we got into 4.5 weeks worth of rehearsal how much work this was going to be.
Who is the cast?
Caitlin Sparks and Winnie Froelich. And I ended up actually switching roles. In the original show, I was the pirate queen. I don't know if you've ever met Caitlin Sparks, but she is tiny and dark and fierce and just perfect for La Femme. So I ended up switching over to play Rosie Bustle. And then Winnie plays a number of roles, including Captain Jake O'Reilly, the dashing pirate captain, and Father Christmas. And yes, one actor can play both of those roles.
Who directed the shows?
The shows are directed by Erica Sasseville. We met doing A Wrinkle in Time at TRP. And she mentioned having a lot of experience working in high schools directing musicals. And I thought, well, some inexperienced, silly actors might be a lot like working with some high school students. So maybe she'd like to come on board. And she's been a delight. She has as much fun with it as we do.
She does, although occasionally she does say, I'm so glad I'm working with adults for this show.
You guys have some very special pricing for these, which we've alluded to earlier, but let's give the full rundown. What is the deal with this show, and how do you see both shows, and can you do it in the same trip?
You can. There are a number of days where we are doing a 2:00 show and then a 3:30 show. So if you want to, you can see one, take a break, get a beverage, jump back in and see the next one. Or you can see them on separate nights, whichever is best for you. The ticket cost is absolutely zero. Absolutely zero, which, like, I can't tell you how much I would like to do every single show that way.
The days in which we do number one, Yar the Lusty Busty Pirate, followed by its sequel, are Saturdays and Sundays. Then there are other days on which you can only see one of them. Again, you can mix and match any way you want to. Gosh, you've only got an hour on Saturday night, or you're doing something early and you can only catch the later show. See them in whatever order you want to. Believe me, there's 3.5 minutes at the opening of Have Yourself a Lusty Busty Xmas that tells you all you really need to know about the show that preceded it.
That was going to be my next question is it important to see them in order? Is it a direct sequel? Do characters carry over, or is it just a spiritual sequel?
A lot of the characters do carry over. It really is a direct sequel, but we make fun of that right at the top, that it's been, 14 years till we got to this point. So let's reintroduce you to these characters in a quick song and dance. So you could see them either way, or you could just see one. You can go online to Fortune's Fool and make a reservation, or you can just show up.
It's a 70-seat space, and you're assured of a seat if you make a reservation, and it's absolutely free with no fees. So, why not do it?
Dan and Ariel, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really looking forward to the show.
Well, we're looking forward to giving it to people.
Yes, I can't wait. It's happening really soon, and we're really thrilled about it.
If laughter is the best medicine, then this is basically a prescription. Ask your doctor if pirate musicals are right for you. Yar, the Lusty Busty Pirate Musical, a remount of the most successful show in Fortune's Fool Theater's history. A swashbuckling parody of classic pirate movies and traditional gender roles, as well as the world premiere of an audacious, daffy, and equally ribald sequel, Have Yourself a Lusty Busty Xmas, which ridicules the holiday season and billionaires who aspire to run the country. Both shows run through December 21st at the Hive Collaborative in St. Paul. Tickets are free to all, but reservations are strongly encouraged so you guarantee yourself a seat, as are donations. We will link to the theater's website in the show notes so you can read more about them and make your reservations. I'll be doing a double feature of the shows on Saturday, December 6th. If you see me at a show, you know what to do. Come up and ask for a photo, and we'll get you walking the plank, not into the sea, but onto the stages of Minnesota. Whether it moves me to cheers or tears, puts me to sleep, or gets me up on my feet. These are my Minnesota Honest reviews. Truthful, but not hurtful. Still grumbling about the first real snowfall and the extended cold snap? Well, stop staring angrily at the weather app and go cheer yourself up with Mistletoe and Mayhem, the Hallmark parody of the season at Phoenix Theater, where everything is festive, sparkly, and emotionally predictable. Yes, parodying Hallmark holiday movies isn't a new idea, but Just Us Theater does it better than most because the script, by Jamie Newstrom, isn't just a string of jokes about the well-worn holiday tropes. It tells a story amid the jokes, while also giving us Christmas townies who act like they were raised on candy canes, hot cocoa, and delusions of sugar plums. The plot follows Victoria Steele, career-driven, ice-cold corporate powerhouse, sent to the postcard-perfect town of Snowberry Falls to decide whether it should become the next site of a mega resort. There she meets hot handyman and Mr. December in the holiday hunk calendar, Nick Evergreen, quirky locals with disturbing amounts of holiday spirit, and a goat named Marzipan. As Victoria melts, she must choose between big city jerk boyfriend Chad or small town holiday hotness. The cast is delightful. Dawn Krasnowski is grounded, charming, and funny as Victoria. Tim Uren and Sarah Brood nearly steal the show as Hank and Betty Evergreen, especially once Hank accidentally samples some microdosed fudge. And Sam Poppins perfectly serious lumberjack model interpretation of Nick, plays the straight man to the madness brilliantly, even while doing wonderfully silly bits like solemnly adding a log to a fire from his handyman toolbox. Jamie Newstrom's direction and production design are a sugar cookie fever dream, but surprisingly polished. Even in the intimate Phoenix theater space, it's festive, chaotic, heartfelt, and self-aware without being mean-spirited. So let's make Mistletoe and Mayhem the runaway holiday hit it deserves to be, because I need the sequel, Mistletoe and Mayhem 2, even mistletoe-ier. Because I have unanswered questions like, what did Carol do to land on Betty's naughty list? Why do they only celebrate Christmas 11 months out of the year? And what's with a goat? The show runs through December 14th at the Phoenix Theater in Uptown. We'll link to the Mistletoe and Mayhem's website in the show notes so you can get your tickets. Go see it, laugh, lean in, and remember, in Snowberry Falls, Christmas is a lifestyle, not a season. That will do it for this episode. We will be back at least once more before we take a couple of weeks off for the holidays. Theaters and non-theater viewers, if you want to sponsor an upcoming episode of The Stages of Minnesota, you can email me at robdunkelberger@thestagesofmn.com. If you saw our holiday preview episode, you'll see that we can go beyond the talking head and graphic and have some fun with it, if you're so inspired. Speaking of emailing, if you have comments, questions, or suggestions of topics you'd like to see covered on the show, you can email me as well. We are always accepting new members in the Stages of Minnesota Plus One Club. Send me an email with your name and mobile number. When I have a Plus One ticket available, I'll text the Plus One Club members, and if you can make it, text me back directly. No group text replies. The first person to reply gets to see a free show with me. I want to thank Dan and Ariel Pinkerton for joining me on the show today. We'll link to Fortune Fools Theater in the show notes so you can read about their pirate double bill and make reservations. Remember, all tickets are free of charge, but if you like what you see and can afford to, please consider making a donation to fund future productions from Fortune's Fool Theater. We'll also link to the website for Mistletoe and Mayhem, so you can pick up tickets to that show before it closes on December 14th. You can read my full reviews of all the shows I see on my blog at thestagesofmn.com. Remember, if you see me out at a show or anywhere, don't be shy, say hi. Let's get a photo together and put you on the Stages of Minnesota. Thanks as always to Ryan Lee for the generous use of his music. Every note of music used on the Stages of Minnesota comes from his albums, which you can find at ryanlee.bandcamp.com. Whether you're watching the YouTube edition or listening to the podcast version, please help spread the word. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and review the show. Until next week, as Carol Jackson's parrot squawked at me as she made me walk the plank, "Squawk! Go see a show! Go see a show! Squawk!"
'Cause it's all over but the shouting. Every soul needs light. My mind's been wasting away in the afternoon shade, out of sight. And I am not the pure and perfect one, but my branches are still bent toward the sun.